All right, today I did 50 chin ups, 50 pull ups, just 10 sets of five, and then I did 100 squats. The workout all in itself took like 22 minutes maybe, give or take. I did start my timer like, just a little late, but, still very, very, a lot of volume, but in a very short amount of time. But I kind of want to talk about I still want to talk about this book that I finished the other day, 1984, by George Orwell. That's the title, 1984. And I kind of like underlined and highlighted like some things in the book that I thought was interesting. Um, so I'll just kind of read out the quote here. For if leisure and security were enjoyed by the great mass of human beings who are normally stupefied by poverty, would become literate and would learn to think for themselves. In the long run, a hierarchical society was only possible on a basis of poverty and ignorance. Um, so this kind of line is from a book within the book, and the book is kind of like a fabrication. It was created by the party to try and like trap and trick people who were like rebellious. But in general, those lines still speak very true. Um, I kind of wrote here that the great masses of the world are controlled by the few who have power. And those who are in power will stay in power, and they'll try and do any type of deceivements, tricks, things like that, to stay in power. And we even see these manipulations happen in real time and over time and in front of our faces. There are many communities and groups of people who are continue to follow what they've been made to believe as true or even as righteous. And I'm gonna provide this example because it's like the example that I can most closely relate to as a young black man. So it's like I don't know how many people watching this are gonna be able to relate or even think of what I've kind of thought of. But us as black people, we are constantly killing ourselves, whether we are killing our our own black neighbor, or we're kind of involuntarily killing ourselves by putting poisons into our minds and bodies. Um, and a lot of us have kind of almost been conditioned to these things, because it's like a life that we know and a life that we've only had access to, basically, or that we believe that we've had access to. So it's like we see everybody else around us do it, everybody else that looks like us do it, and we kind of see, okay, this is the normal thing. And then when we see someone deviating, we're like, oh, that's like a white thing, or that's some type of white people stuff. Like I don't do that. I'm black. The black experience is usually equated with a lot of things that can kind of be seen or attributed to as negative. We're gonna constantly give our money and our resources to companies that don't really care about us, and kind of like suppress us in a way. Black people in America are the number one consumer, so we buy like so many things, just so many material things that have no relative use for us. And it's a shame. It's a sad thing. And we're kind of also kind of believed into thinking, so okay, this is my belief, right? This is kind of like my general way of thinking when it comes to American politics, which were developed as black people were enslaved. A lot of these politics and positions put in place that we still hold to today were put into power, and they were put into position when black people were literally considered subhuman at the time. And I feel like in general, when it comes to our place within the political system, there isn't really much of a place for us, for all of us. It's kind of like considered that, oh, black people are supposed to be liberal, we're supposed to believe in this, we're supposed to have a democratic vote, whatever the case may be. But it's like those institutions, those organizations that we're supposed to be believing in and trusting ourselves in to help us, are going right around and taking advantage of us and our, taking advantage of our support. And then at the same time, since we're relying on these institutions and organizations and whatever the case may be, it kind of puts us in this, whether we realize it or not, in a victim mindset that kind of makes us think that we need outside forces and outside powers to help us, to make us greater, to convince us that we can't do it on our own. So therefore, we're never really going to seek out the resources that we actually need to better ourselves, and that's going to keep us, of course, below in, I guess, kind of like the hierarchy, I would say. I'm not sure how low, but I feel like still black people are definitely coming up, and we are definitely attaining knowledge that I kind of wrote here that we've kind of like either been deprived from, or that we've kind of been conditioned to not adhere to. Um, just something as simple as like a library, getting a library card. It's free, depending on your state. Where I live, it's free. You can just walk in and just, hey, can I get a library card? You give them your address, email, phone number, boom. Now you got a library card. Now you can go in there, you can have access to so much knowledge, like already. If you work a job and you have a little bit of disposable income, and hopefully you're saving already, and instead of buying, like, saving up to get new clothes or new shoes or something, again, materialistic that you don't really need, right? You can get notebooks. You can start journaling. You can get just books in general, just to start to educate yourself. You can buy something simple as a dictionary, which costs like $7, $8 or something like that, $4, I think, at the lowest, and just simply, like, just read through it and educate yourself on new words and bigger words, and just get better and better definitions. um, and that's just one way in order to kind of regain the power that has kind of been stripped from us, or that we've been convinced that we might have even never had to begin with. So in a sense, we kind of have to, like, wake up, and I'm speaking to anybody that can kind of relate in this situation. But for me, I'm kind of speaking to black people. But if you're able to pick up what I'm putting down, then this, you can relate to this too. We kind of have to wake up and take that power in our own hands, and for our own selves, because we definitely have the ability to do so. If we all kind of became conscious and whatnot, we would definitely be able to do just so many amazing things, and be able to move mountains. Now, it's not like the book, mentions anything about black people or anything like that, or racism, or not necessarily. It's not like it's something it goes deep into, but it's just kind of like, from me taking these phrases and these quotes from the book, and then using them in the context that they were used, or not using them, but looking at them in the context that they were using, and then looking at them in isolation. I kind of draw my own thoughts and inferences from it. Not saying that that's what the book is saying directly, but just kind of saying that, like, this is kind of the thought pattern that some of these lines have led me into, because they kind of speak to me. They say a lot of things without, saying it. And I guess it's kind of like I am a vessel that is explaining these phrases in a way that, at least in a way that I interpreted them. Like, another quote from the book: the essential act of war is destruction, not necessarily of human lives, but of the products of human labor. So, at least in the way the book describes war is kind of like a tool to target the product, or the products in which we create to sustain ourselves. And without these products, we must rely on those powers that have led us into submission, or to rely on other entities, which will help us, right? But usually those outside sources or whatever, they're going to want something in return for them lending us products and lending us resources. And that's usually always going to put us in a form of submission. Again, you can kind of relate this to, like, what I was talking about with black people earlier. Like, how we kind of feel like we're always in this victim mentality, that we need help from other people, or that we can't do things ourselves. So we're kind of always indebted to, outside forces. And then they're going to expect something from us, right? You know, if not, our own labor and our own help and our own support is going to be just for their own personal gain to run off and do whatever they want. And that's the thing, we have to be able to be self-sufficient and self-sustainable, and we have to gather the knowledge and the resources, right? That's why it's like, you know, you have to wake up and you have to just gain more knowledge in general. And in order for you to create these resources and products and to be able to have the power and the knowledge to sustain them on your own, whether that be as an individual or as a community, so that way we don't have to submit to any foreign entities or powers or anything that is coming in to even make us believe that, you know, oh, you can't do it on your own, little one, and then, you know, pat us on the head and kiss us goodnight and everything. I'll take care of it just for you. Just here, just eat this right here, and I'll just take care of the rest of it. You go sit down. You know what? How about you sit on the bench and I'll just take the rest of the game. You know, stuff like that, right? And again, we have to just wake up and realize that, you know, and I might not just be speaking to black people, I just might be speaking to people in general. If you feel like you are a person who is constantly always keeping, you know, their head down, submitting, you know, looking up at people, and it's not in, you know, in an influential or an inspiring way, it's as if you're lower, you know, as if you're a lower life form almost. You have to just be able to gain knowledge and gain power so that way no one can test your abilities, right? No one can come to you and say that you can't do this, you can't do that, when in fact you are able to. You do have the abilities because you've built them up from ground up, you know, from ground level and all the way to 100, and now you're able to conquer your own self in a way, right? And this can happen on a mass scale of like with, you know, with millions of people if we all kind of came together and made a consensus that it was the most noble and righteous thing to do, to take your own power into your own hands. But that's about all I have to say. You know, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Peace out.